What's up, Taiwan? I'm Yvonne Yang with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan has been showing off its missile firepower, launching a series of surface-to-air missiles at a test site in the country's southeast. The live fire drills come against the backdrop of mounting cross-strait tensions. Hamilton reports from Pingtung County.
Taiwan's military testing its air defense. The military is conducting 3 days of annual tests on a variety of weapons in its arsenal. This round includes a US-made Patriot air defense system and Taiwan's own Skybow 3. Both of these systems are crucial for protecting the skies above Taiwan.
这一次精准飞弹射击的任务规划，主要目的在验证精准弹药的效能以及装备的可靠度。我们今天的科目主要是以反飞机作战为主。
These kinds of drills have been conducted for decades, but this is the first time in over 12 years that the military has opened its doors to this base. This facility is known as Jiupeng Base, and it's one of Taiwan's most secret bases. That's because not too many people have been inside. It's located in the southeastern part of the country, and it's here where Taiwan tests some of its most advanced weapons. The military is closing the airspace and waters around Jiupeng Base during the tests, as fighter jets and warships will also be joining later this week. The exercises are part of Taiwan's effort to boost its defense, as it's faced with the threat of invasion from neighboring China, which claims the country as part of its territory. For decades, Taiwan has relied heavily on the US for its defense, purchasing almost all of its weapons from Washington. But with a record defense budget nearing approval, that might be about to change.
It has been Taiwan's defense policy to try to be relatively more reliant on their own industrial bases. If you have your own system produced or you integrate your own system, then it's much easier to maintain those systems.
Taiwan has poured billions of US dollars into developing its own weapons programs, and that includes making advanced missiles capable of hitting Chinese fighter jets in the event of a war. Missile production has slowly grown from about 300 missiles a year in 2020 to now producing more than 1,000 missiles annually. Military officials say if China's attacked, Taiwan would need tens of thousands of missiles, and that's why some say more needs to be done.
In particular, ramping up missile production is incredibly important. I hope that continues. I don't think that Taiwan right now is where it needs to be in terms of just pumping out the munitions and missiles that it would need during a contingency.
Exercises like these serve dual roles, practicing for the worst case scenario while also acting as a deterrent by demonstrating the country's resolve. But the key to any defense isn't just in training Taiwan's soldiers. It's making sure they have the equipment they need to succeed. Ryan Wu and Jaime Ocon in Pingtung County for TaiwanPlus.
Japan and India are holding a third set of meetings between their foreign and defense ministers in New Delhi. A 2+2 meetings come as geopolitical tensions escalate in the Indo-Pacific region. To find out what to expect from the dialogue, our reporter Adele Brar spoke to Swati Rao from the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis in India.
What's the significance of the Japan-India 2+2 dialogue?
The significance of the 2+2 dialogue is that India has this particular mechanism called the 2+2 with very few countries that it considers very close strategic partners. So, for instance, India has this 2+2, which essentially means that the foreign minister and the defense minister of one country actually interact with the foreign minister and their respective counterparts from the other country. And this mechanism India has with Japan, with the US, with Australia, with Russia, and very recently with the UK, which means that there are very few countries in the world with whom India has this kind of a mechanism. In fact, even if you look at India's ties with France, that happens to be a very important strategic partner, even there you really do not have a 2+2 mechanism. So that somewhere tells you the uniqueness and the importance of this particular dialogue.
What outcomes can we expect coming out of this latest 2+2 dialogue?
But looking specifically at the 2+2, I think there are two very distinct verticals. One is, of course, about the security of the larger Indo-Pacific. We all know that India and Japan are also together in Quad, which is the security quadrilateral with two other partners, which is the US and Australia. But for all practical purposes, everybody knows that this is about managing, if not countering, at least managing the rise of China and the asymmetric rise of China in the Indo-Pacific.
Japan has made its position on Taiwan question very clear, while India remains ambivalent. What's your view?
But as far as I can say, the ambivalence that you also see that India has been becoming more substantive in its outreach to Taiwan. You see that happening, which is a welcome step, of course. But at the same time, like I said, that country agnosticism remains, and I don't see that the ambivalence or the ambiguity, let's say the strategic ambiguity that India maintains on Taiwan, would disappear anytime soon, because that perhaps is a preferred way for so many partners in the region.
That was Swasti Rao from the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis in New Delhi. South Korea is conducting joint anti-terror drills, part of the country's annual civil defense exercise. The drills are designed to help first responders, police, and the military jointly prepare for emergencies beyond large-scale conflict. This includes responding to drone attacks and hostage situations in urban centers. The civil defense exercises are taking place all week as Seoul seeks to boost its response to security risks. A carbon dioxide leak at an onshore wind farm station in Changhua has left 17 people hospitalized, with 3 in critical condition. The company that owns the station says the incident happened while workers were installing fire safety equipment containing CO2. It says some leaked out, causing workers to inhale and asphyxiate on the gas. Emergency responders rushed to the scene and sent affected workers to the hospital for treatment. 2 cars were damaged by falling metal beams in New Taipei during the Tuesday morning rush hour. The accident in Santong District happened when the beams dropped off a trailer truck and broke through the guardrail of a bridge, falling to the street below. Police say the truck was overloaded and the beams were not properly secured. While no one was injured, the truck driver faces fines and charges of public endangerment. The bridge is one of the main arteries connecting New Taipei with the capital. A single Taipei-bound lane has been open to traffic, but officials estimate it will take 2 months to fully repair the damage. Teachers in Taiwan are starting a hunger strike after policy changes last year left gaps in funding for civil servants' pensions. The National Teachers Union says the government has not responded to its warnings that current plan risks costing more in the long term and leaving pensions funds in peril. By law, the government must make up the shortfall in funding for civil servant pensions, but has chosen to spread the cost over 2 decades. The protesting union is asking the government to fulfill its commitment in 10 years instead to ensure the fund has faster access to the money it needs. Questions are being raised over the country's rental subsidy program. The government program is being extended for another 2 years, but critics say it's not actually working. John Van Trieste explains.
As he works to complete his master's degree, Wu Shidao calls this home of less than 13 square meters home. By Taipei standards, his monthly rent of $140 is a bargain. And thanks to a government rental subsidy program expanded last July and now set to continue through 2026, he pays less than $30.
房东也没有觉得怎么样，就租补贴要写，可能契约比较详细嘛，然后他就会愿意帮我们再重新写一些更详细的契约。
But Wu is one of the lucky ones. Housing justice advocates say they see landlords using subsidies as an excuse to raise rents. They're especially concerned about tenants who unknowingly rent on the black market. According to estimates from recent years, about 80% of rental units are unregistered, meaning their landlords don't pay tax on rental income. That means most renters in Taiwan would accidentally out their landlords to the tax office if they ask for subsidies, leaving them open to retaliation.
其实政府现在是都没有办法控管这件事情的，因为租黑市的关系，政府也不知道说到底哪个地方因此而涨得特别的多，对，所以就很难制定一个比较完善的住宅政策。
But officials from the Interior Ministry see things differently. The expansion of the subsidy program last year was meant to help up to 500,000 people. That goal has already been broken.
核定我们已经 超过60万，表示什么？民众对这一块其实他是申请是很踊跃的，表示他的确需要政府来给他做帮忙。
But Taiwan's cost of living continues to rise. This year, the Consumer Price Index is expected to go up by over 2%. When average incomes are factored in, Taiwan is one of the world's most expensive housing markets, meaning rental prices continue to be a political issue. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Banks in Taiwan say they're cutting back on new mortgages and raising interest rates. This comes after a recent flood of applications. Irene Ling looks at how this affects renters and house buyers.
Home buyers in Taiwan have long had to compete with high prices, but now mortgages are getting more expensive as well. Several banks are raising interest rates on new applications and putting a limit on the number of loans they offer, while the government investigates the situation.
我们现在正在了解到底是什么样的原因造成说所谓市场上有这个限贷，那我们也同时要了解是不是市场上真的有这样限贷的问题。
The monthly mortgage rate in state-owned banks sits at 2.185%. That's the baseline. Now many of them have scaled up the range to 3%. The rising interest rates have deterred many investors, but the demand for mortgages remains high among young buyers. Since 2010, the government has a policy to help younger generations buy their first homes. That policy, officially named Preferential Housing Loans for the Youth, offers new homeowners a loan of over $300,000 and below market interest rates. Now their options for housing may be more limited than ever. As homeowners won't let go of their old houses, young buyers have to turn to new build projects instead of cheaper older houses. And more investors are bidding on pre-sale homes, driving up prices. As landlords are paying more for their new investment, this could also mean higher rents for the tenants.
很多这个投资自产者呢，可能会把增加的利息成本转嫁到租金上。当然，这个最终的后果就是租屋主呢会承受很高昂的租金，他们可能是最受伤最惨烈的一批人。
Some suspect government policy is what's driving up the demand for loans, and consequently interest rates. No matter the cause, renters and young buyers are still scrambling to find a roof to put over their heads. Justin Wu and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
A bird that was once considered a nuisance by farmers here in Taiwan and at one point only numbered around 50 is now thriving. Chris Gorin looks at how this very special species was brought back from the brink.
Here in the lotus ponds of Kaohsiung's Meinong district in southern Taiwan, vegetable farmers live alongside the pheasant-tailed Jakana. The bird is famous for its habit of walking on top of the floating plants. They not only search for food on the surface of the plants, but they also lay and hatch their eggs. Locals say the birds can draw a crowd.
肉眼看就看得出来了。有几只大的？这边一只啦，在那个跑了，你看，在跑呢。跑那个是小的哦。对，黄黄的是小的。
每天很多赏鸟人士都在我的园子来拍，我还去搬那个椅子来给他们坐，很多，每天都很多啊。
It's a success story for the species. Farmers used to consider the birds a nuisance. At one point, there were only about 50 left in Taiwan. But about 20 years ago, farmers here began conservation efforts to protect the birds, and they now number more than 3,000. Efforts have included using labeling to show customers that their farms help support the birds.
我每次就抱那个复制柠檬的那个袋子你没有包给人家看的话，人家都不晓得。
然后也是希望就是水质能够，农民的田都当然它栖息的环境，对，农民如果有因此而受到一些损失的话，再把它水质当成一种资源这样子，也能够帮他们的野莲加分。
With labeling and use of 24-hour habitat live streams, the pheasant-tailed Jakana has become a national favorite, showing that with a little creativity, farmers and conservationists can find a sustainable balance. John Su and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we take you to Sri Lanka, where people have been celebrating the Festival of the Tooth, a Buddhist tradition. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.